Hello, hello. Thank you so much for tuning into this ASMR True Crime Soft Spoken. Today I'm going to be doing another requested case. So thank you so much for the request. I have my list of requests that I'm going through, and it's so exciting being able to do the cases that you guys want to see. So if you requested something, it will get done. I have it down and I'm chugging along through them, so thank you. I am going to post for a Q&A, so feel free to ask any questions in the post or in any of the comments, and I will gather them up and make a video. So I'm excited. Please feel free to ask away. So we're going to get into the case now. Today we're going to talk about the case of Christian Andreacchio. Christian was born November 4th, 1992 to Ray and Todd Andreacchio. He grew up on Delwood Shore Lake in Mississippi. He had 2 brothers and a sister. He was described as a hard worker who loved life and loved being by the water. He loved being the center of attention, and he was the life of the party. He was a very good-hearted guy who wanted to help out everyone that he saw. The love of water is what drew him to his career and work on a tugboat where he was employed by Magnolia Marine. So it's 2014. Christian is 21 years old. He is on his way to becoming one of the youngest towboat captains, and he's following his career dreams. He begins seeing Whitley Goodman. She's described as very polite and cute, and they quickly fall in love. She moved in with Christian and his family for a little while, but after a few weeks, there is tension that's building around Whitley's jealousy. Apparently, the family had a photo of Christian's ex-girlfriend in it, to which Whitley actually stabs the faces out of Christian and his ex and brings this photo to his mom, which is ballsy. In an interview, when his dad's asked what he thought after that happened, he says, quote, "I thought she was a nut," which is very fair. They then ask that Whitley moves out. Christian responds that if she can't be there, then he won't be there. So they move into an apartment together, and Christian ends up paying the rent for this apartment. It seems at this point he's paying for pretty much everything for her, including a car, makeup, clothing. And this, of course, concerns his parents very much at the possibility that she's using him. According to Whitley's mother, however, she said she also had concerns. She says that Whitley would have to stay on the phone with Christian during his trips and tell him what she was doing for hours every night while he was away. So they had only been dating for about 6 months. So this relationship was very quick and very intense. In late February 2014, Christian speaks to his mother in the morning while he's on the boat. He was a few days into what's called a hitch, which is a 30-day work trip on the Mississippi River where he was a first mate. On the phone with his mom, he says he has to get off of the phone in order to coordinate tickets to go see Rihanna and Eminem with a friend. She says it was a very ordinary conversation. On February 26, 2014, around 4:45 p.m., Dylan Swearinger calls 911 and says there's been a suicide and Christian was laying across the bathroom tub with blood everywhere. Dylan was one of Christian's best friends that he frequently hung out with. On this 911 call, you can hear Whitley in the background wailing. When police come, they discover Christian located in the upstairs bathroom. He was face down in a blood-filled tub. He was shot on the right side of the head. When his parents get the call that their son had been found dead, they are in shock. His mom had just talked to him, and they thought that he had been on his hitch. They provide the parents with his driver's license to show that their son was actually in his apartment on the day, but nothing was making sense to them, especially since they were saying it was a suicide. There was very little investigation that occurred on the day that the incident had happened. The investigators were actually called off from examining the scene. The investigation itself, if you want to call it that, lasted only 45 minutes. There were no reports or history of Christian being suicidal or depressed. He was at this point in his life that seemed to be going extremely well for both his career and relationship. Upset by the lack of investigation, Christian's mother calls her brother, Chris Thompson, to drive over to the police department the night of his death. When he arrived, Dylan and Whitley were being questioned by police. At first, Whitley denied having Christian's phone, but then eventually does hand it over to police, which is a big red flag for his family. Whitley and Dylan are also checked for gunpowder residue, and both test positive for gunpowder residue on their hands. So, 4 months after his death, Benny DeBreeze becomes the new chief of police and took on the case. He saw a lot of strange things about the case. To start with, the gun was taken to the lab and they did not find any prints on Christian's gun. So his print should have been on the gun if he committed suicide, but it appeared that the gun had been wiped down. The bathroom also appeared to be very clean as well. There was no blood spatter located on the walls or area around the tub that would be consistent with a suicide. So it appears that the crime scene had been tampered with and cleaned up. The crime scene photos were taken from a cell phone, and the picture quality was terrible. Whitley and Dylan were never photographed to see if they had any blood on them or any markings. So to this day, it's unknown if they had any blood on them. According to Dylan's account, Christian had called him earlier that morning around 2 a.m. for a ride home from St. Rose, Louisiana, because he had found out Whitley had been cheating on him and he wanted to get her out of the apartment. Upon arriving, Dylan says Whitley and Christian immediately began arguing, and then Christian suddenly takes out a gun and puts it to his head, threatening to kill himself. Dylan says he takes the gun from him, unloads it, and hides the gun. Surveillance cameras are discovered that show Dylan at Christian's bank at about 12:24 p.m. that day on February 26th. Dylan told investigators that Christian had given Dylan his card and told him to deposit all of his money because he was giving him all his money. But since Dylan did not have his PIN number, he was unable to get anything from his bank accounts. He says he arrives back after that. They watched a couple movies. He said at this point Christian had calmed down, so he gave him his gun back. He said Whitley was settling in to take a nap, while Dylan went off to run another errand. It's when he returns that he discovers Christian in the tub. Now Whitley has some inconsistency in her story. She first told first responders and friends that she had discovered the body. However, to detectives, she tells them that Dylan was the one who discovered the body. She says that she was asleep on the couch when the gun went off and she slept through it. So she slept through a gunshot. A gunshot from that gun, they said, would have been heard from at least 2 to 3 apartments over. Her response to having gunpowder residue was due to shooting guns the night before with friends. Now, one friend said this account was true, and another friend said this account was not true, which is sketch. At first, Christian's cause of death was undetermined, but after an autopsy and forensic pathologist declared it a suicide, the police closed the case. This leaves the family essentially investigating on their own. They begin hiring private investigators and a forensic pathologist named Dr. Jonathan Arden. In his conclusion, he states that the death was caused by a homicide. He points out the odd placement of the gun found at the scene. The gun was pressed between Christian's left thigh and the tub. This was odd because he was shot on the right side and he was right-handed, so why it would be on his left side. It also shows the bullet had struck the wall on the opposite side of the bathroom by the sink, but the bullet ended up in the bathtub and he was leaning over the bathtub. So it just doesn't make any sense, and it appears staged. The coroner had put his death at 3:45 p.m. However, Dr. Arden believes he may have died earlier than that due to the photographs at the scene indicating his body was in advanced rigor mortis. This is the stiffening of his muscles after death. He states that the state of rigor mortis indicated that he was dead for several hours, which leaves open the possibility that Christian was already dead when Dylan went to the bank. A few weeks after Christian's death, police interviewed Dylan again. He states that he was confused on why Christian wanted to give him his money. He also goes on to describe Whitley and Christian's relationship as constant fighting and mistrust. He says Christian would have him spy on Whitley and check up on her while he was gone. He says he discovered the body by opening the door to the bathroom and seeing him hunched over the bathtub. Police discover a misspelled message on Christian's phone that was sent to Whitley the night before he died. The text says, "If this doesn't work out when I get to my apartment, I'm putting my pistol in my mouth and I'm ending this once and for all. Because Whitley, you're the closest I have ever been to happiness." There's some speculation if this message was not done by Christian due to Whitley having possession of his phone after death and lying about it. But the state's attorney says this would not have been possible because the messages were sent when he was on the tugboat. The police chief assigned Captain J. Arrington to look at the case 3 years later. After going through all of the evidence, he concludes that it was a homicide. He states he has no doubt the body was moved and that he was dead for several hours prior to the 911 call. The scene appeared altered. So warrants were made for Whitley and Dylan, charging them with manslaughter by culpable negligence, which means unintentional causes of death while disregarding the safety for that person. The warrants were never served. In February 2017, they passed the case along to Mississippi State Attorney General Office. In October of 2017, a Mississippi State's prosecutor did present the case to a grand jury. However, the investigative report completed by J. Arrington was not allowed to be presented, which he states was the only time that has happened to him in 30 years. So the grand jury never heard from the detective who found it to be a suicide. The grand jury decided to not indict Whitley or Dylan of manslaughter or homicide due to lack of evidence. The family continued advocating for his case through Facebook groups and getting the word out. Podcasts began to cover the case, which brought a lot of attention to it. And in August of 2020, J. Arrington's investigative report was made public for the first time. So the family hears things from this report that they had never heard regarding the findings of this case. The current state attorney states that she went over with the jury and attorneys presenting the case and says that they provided all the reports for the grand jury to see, including Arrington's. However, 48 Hours is able to interview a person who was on the grand jury. She says that she never heard of J. Arrington or his report. When they read off his findings, she said that she had never heard of any of the details during that time, which really impacted how the case looked. This is not good for any opportunity in this case for his family to get justice. No further movements are made by the state's attorney office. Unfortunately, throughout all of this, Christian's autopsy photos are released and passed along social media sites, which deeply upsets his family. In July 2021, his parents are able to get a law passed called Christian's Law that restricts the public release of autopsy photos in Mississippi. His family continues to be active on social media, advocating for their son's case. So here's just a general timeline of the events. On the evening of February 25th, 2014, Christian decides to leave the tugboat where he was working after receiving permission from his captain. Because his car was in Mississippi, where the boat had loaded 3 days earlier, Christian called his friend Justin late at night to ask him for a ride back to his apartment. Christian calls him back and informs him that somebody else would be picking him up, another friend of Christian's named Dylan. Dylan arrives to pick up Christian around 8 a.m. the following day on February 26, 2014. By 11:30 a.m., the pair arrived back at Christian's apartment where his girlfriend Whitley is waiting. After Christian and Whitley begin arguing shortly after their arrival, the trio watches a movie before Christian asks Dylan to run to the local bank, withdraw all of his money out of his account, and pick up some lunch for the group. Dylan quickly agrees and leaves to run the errands. And during this time, he's seen at the bank on security footage at 12:30 p.m. Christian's bank account shows that there was a purchase at a Chick-fil-A at 1:06 p.m., placing Dylan there at this time. Once he returns, the group watches another movie before Christian and Whitley decide to go on a drive. After the couple returns for a couple of hours later, and Dylan wakes up from a nap, he decides to go to a local Best Buy to look at their speaker selection. Before Dylan leaves, he retrieves Christian's gun from a hiding spot behind a curtain and returns it to him. He says that Whitley is going to take a nap and Christian is just smoking on the couch. Between 3:44 p.m. and 3:54 p.m., Christian's phone is used to call Matt Miller 6 times with no answer. At 4:15 p.m., Christian's neighbor reports seeing a gold Chevrolet or GMC truck parked next to Whitley's silver BMW at the apartment. He watches the truck pull out and leave. Dylan returns to the house, looks around for Christian. He tells Whitley he's worried when he doesn't get any response, but she went back to sleep, and then he finds him in the bathroom and then calls 911 at 4:45 p.m. According to Christian's phone records, between 4:48 and 4:55 p.m., 3 calls were placed. One to an unknown caller, second to a friend of Dylan, and third was Dylan's mother. This is Christian's phone. At 5:04 p.m., the first officer arrives at the scene. At 5:11 p.m., Christian's phone is used to call Matt Miller. It's believed that Whitley has possession of its phone around this period of time. So after getting a little bit of the timeline, here's some of the theories. The first theory is that Christian did intentionally kill himself. In 2018, District Attorney Casey Coleman took over the case and reviewed the evidence. She states that there was further investigations done by multiple agencies who all declared it to be a suicide. The reason that he went on to do this was due to the stressors in his relationship. Whitley's mother suggests that 2 months prior to his death, Christian got drunk and was very angry, and he put his gun to his head and also put it to Whitley's head and asked if she loved him. However, when Whitley was asked in police interviews if he was suicidal, she replied, quote, "I don't think so." His family very strongly disagrees with the possibility, considering he had no previous depression or suicide ideations or attempts. Also, the fact that they had only been dating 6 months makes his family question why he would have ended his life over a short relationship. I also want to sprinkle in that Whitley has never done any interviews, but she did get like a photo op with her mom during the 48 hours coverage when they did interview her mom. But during this time, she doesn't answer any questions. She's not interviewed, but she does read this very, very bad poem to the camera crew. Like, I'm talking like at one point she rhymed like pain in vain. Like in vain. It was very bad. I mean, no one said she was smart, but you know. But this poem is really about her being victim, which just rubs you the wrong way a little bit. Another theory is that it wasn't a suicide nor an intended murder, but perhaps Christian had held his gun to his head as a threat, not intending to actually commit suicide, but either Whitley or Dylan had reached for it or tried to intervene, and it went off. And they ended up covering it up since it was an accident. Perhaps this explains the gunpowder residue on their hands, the weird placement of the gun, the cleanup, and the bullet hole being placed on the other side of the wall. This may also indicate that an accident may have happened earlier on than reported, and Dylan then tried to go get his money knowing he was dead but was not able to. And then they proceeded to clean up and decide a story together. Another theory is murder, with the conclusion from the forensic pathologist the parents hired indicating the scene did not match a suicide. The possibility that he was dead prior to Dylan attempting to empty out this bank account, it points to the possibility of foul play. There's been some guessing on the 3 phone calls placed after the 911 call on Christian's phone. My first thought is that maybe Dylan was on his phone with 911. I was kind of freaking out. He was calling people using Christian's phone too while he was on 911. This could also be the speculation that maybe he was scared after witnessing or being involved with something along the lines of foul play. So it's usually when the scene looks to be altered and tampered with, it indicates that there is something to hide. It's also very suspicious that Willie claims to have been asleep and never heard the gunshot. If somebody shoots a high-powered pistol in a 1,000-square-foot apartment and you never wake up, it's a little sketch. It would have been more believable if she were to have said that she woke up from a gunshot and called 911 rather than waiting until Dylan came home to discover the body. I was also thinking like how no neighbors really reported that I saw like hearing a gunshot at any time. That would be really nice to know if like a neighbor heard the gunshot at 12 p.m. versus 4 p.m. like whatever. That make a really significant difference. So I'm kind of surprised. I mean, the initial investigation, obviously they really didn't put any effort in, but after that I didn't see anyone interviewing neighbors after that. I mean, the one guy saw something, but anyway, the fact that gunpowder residue was found on both of their hands, no fingerprints on the gun, the position of the gun and the bullet hole, and just like the really weird cleanup of blood splatter indicates that forensic evidence for many shows that this was some kind of foul play or homicide. So it feels like the avenue of murder could either be Whitley did it and Dylan came in and discovered the body, or both Whitley and Dylan were involved. Some people point to the 911 call as suspicious, with Whitley very loudly wailing, Dylan saying like don't touch anything, they don't want us to touch anything. Like Dylan gives an alibi while on the call, stating he was out. He says like, oh, it was like a suicide, already kind of says what it was. There's no bare concern of like, somebody's still in the house, which some people always state is suspicious when they see that in 911 calls. The really sad factor in this case is that there was a 45-minute investigation that probably really impacted the ability to get these clear answers. So I lean a little bit towards the manslaughter route, where there wasn't any intention for murder, but either he had his gun up to his head and there was an accident. But it gives me the creeps that potentially they covered this up. They tried to get his money out of his account. They got lunch. They sat around for a period of time. It just always gives me the creeps. This idea that this horrible accident may have happened and somebody covers it up. I don't know. You have to be a certain type of person to do that, but I think the family generally believes that it was intentional. At the very least, there was some kind of involvement by them in this case. But that is the case of Christian Andreacchio. Thank you so much for watching. I always say this, you guys are the best. I'm excited to continue covering the cases that you guys request. So, I hope that you're having a good day or good night wherever you are. And you have a good day tomorrow. And I'm going to see you in my next video.